I'm going to show you the go to mat exercise. This is really handy to have your dog do this, especially if you have people coming in the front door, if you're sitting down to eat, if the dog will just go and quietly rest on its mat. That is ideal situation. So that's one of the basic exercises I teach is the go to mat exercise. And what that is the dog goes to a designated spot, and I like to designate that spot with a mat or a dog bed, and the dog lies down there and stays until you tell it otherwise. So to introduce the mat, the first thing is just to have the dog go to the mat. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can use shaping, and I'll demonstrate shaping first. So you put out the mat, and when the dog shows any interest in it, you click and treat. And you can deliver the treat on the mat to show that that's really what you're looking for. Okay. Okay. So first you just click and treat any interest in the mat. The dog looks at the mat, click and treat. The dog steps toward the mat, click and treat. And then gradually raise your criteria. Now the dog has to step on the mat. Once the dog is putting 1 or 2 paws on reliably, you have to go all the way and put all 4 paws on. Once the dog is putting all 4 paws on the mat, then wait and see if they'll offer a sit or a down. And that's the final behavior, is the dog goes to the mat and lies down, plus the stay. Then we gradually have the dog stay for longer and longer periods of time before we click and treat. And that's one way to teach the mat exercise. Another way is to use targeting. And to use targeting, you can have the dog target your hand, touch, and she ends up on the mat. Okay. Touch. And then while the dog's on the mat, you can give them several treats. Okay. And that's a way to jumpstart the mat exercise if the dog is not showing any interest in the mat. Touch. And then if your dog knows, if the dog knows the down or a cue to lie down, you can then add that. Touch. Drop. Okay. So again, if the dog knows a cue for touching your hand and lying down, you just pair those to get the behavior. Touch. Drop. And to get the dog to stay on the mat for longer and longer periods of time, you can shape that by, if the dog does happen to remain in the down position, give them an extra treat. And you don't have to click every time while you're feeding them in the down on the mat, because the click also indicates that the dog is free to get up and move. And so on the mat, we don't want the dog to do that. And stays, we want the dog to remain in place. So the dog gets treats with no click for staying in place. Once the dog is staying there with you standing next to them, you can gradually start walking around a little bit, moving further away, having the dog stay for longer periods of time. You can gradually start adding distractions. And if the dog stays in place, so you can see she was startled by that sound, but she stayed in place. She got another treat. Okay. When you release your dog, I recommend going to the dog on the mat to release them, as opposed to calling the dog from the mat. If practical, go to the dog to release them from a stay. And that encourages the dog to remain in place. If you always call the dog to you out of a stay, the dog realizes that they only get treats when they come to you, and they're not being reinforced for staying out there. So that's why it's a good idea to, most of the time, go to the dog on the stay to release them, as opposed to having them come to you. And to periodically feed the dog while they are staying, as I demonstrated with the mat exercise, to just feed them during the stay to reinforce the stay. And another thing you may have noticed, drop. Another thing you may have noticed is I put the treat between Penny's paws on the mat. And that's a good idea to do with both with the mat exercise and with any downstay exercise you're doing, is actually put the treat, if practical, put the treat on the floor, on the ground, between the dog's paws. That helps the dog have more downward focus and helps them remain in place in a down position. Whereas if you're feeding from your hand, then they always have this upward focus, which is desirable a lot of the time, but in the down, we don't want that. We want the dog to be focused on the ground, on the spot where they are on lying down. Whereas if we feed from the hand, even if you bend over, the dog's nose goes up, see? Whereas you feed on the ground, the dog is always looking to the ground because the treat appears on the ground. So that's just a little tip that will help with the mat exercise and any downstay or long down exercise you might practice. So email me if you have any questions about this. If you want me to demonstrate or explain anything in more detail, don't hesitate to contact me. I know I throw a lot of information out there at once, and it can be hard to remember everything, and I don't always explain things perfectly. So don't hesitate to contact me if you want any clarification. So thanks for watching. Okay.